smart shoppers everywhere take time out to pause and refresh. And where else but in the fountain where they serve ice-cold Coca-Cola?
The eMilitia Podcast, Episode 16. Don't Tax Me Bro. Arcology and the Free City Project. Enjoy, fuckers.
Okay, good morning, fellow libertarians, or good night. I don't know what fucking time it is. But we're here with most of the eMilitia and a very special guest. And we're going to be talking about some really interesting things and probably things that you've never heard of, because before today, roughly 20 minutes before I got on to record, I had never heard of them and I had to read a bunch of Wikipedia articles. So here we are. It's gonna be informative and it's gonna be funny, I hope. Also, first of all, I would like to permanently welcome a once guest, now permanent resident, Empress of Meme, to the eMilitia podcasts, because she is now part of the eMilitia and will be with us perhaps eternally now. But more importantly, far and away, our guest for this episode, Don't Tax Me Bro. And he is our main source of information on our main topic for today. So
I was really hoping you were going to say maid of honor.
He can be whatever he wants, I guess. No judgment here. But anyway, Don't Tax Me Bro, or Don't Tax, I guess, or just Bro if you're that cool. I'm sure most of our listeners already know of you and follow and enjoy your content. But for those that are listening to this podcast that don't, why don't you go ahead and tell us who you are? Give us an origin story of what made you a libertarian and why are you the way that you are? And tell us about your ideas of communism.
I can do everything except the last part, except, to say fuck communism. But my backstory would be I grew up in a very conservative Christian family, and also, they were very strict. But growing up, you have all these ideals put into your head as from a Christian perspective, that people are supposed to love each other, take care of each other, look out for each other, and, do no harm, essentially, is the idea.
Sounds like communism to me.
Yeah, and so I wasn't really seeing a lot of that in the type of conservative, viewpoints where you're just like, hey, yeah, let's just bomb the Middle East until it's glowing, or things like that. It didn't seem like they were really applying those sort of principles universally.
Yeah, we'll send the poor people's kids over to die. No big deal.
Yeah. And so looking into it further and getting introduced to Ron Paul as he was running during, I believe it was McCain and Palin, I think. Was it
during the revolution?
Yeah, 2012 election. And so I, started reading his material, listened to his speeches, and really took to the message that, you should just let people live their lives and not try to control their lives, not force a government to implement conservative values in people's lives, but allow people to live how they want to live. And so from that position of just let people live their lives, I made my way into libertarianism. For a while, I considered myself a minarchist, and then because I was trying to go with the whole idea of the founders, and then I was not very... The more I read about what the founders did and the exceptions that they made, which led us to the tyrannical system we have now, the less enchanted I was with the system and some of the things that they implemented. So all in all, I found myself to become what I call a voluntarist, which is strictly all human interaction should be voluntary. If you want to be an anarcho-communist and live in your own little commune, you can do that. If you want to pursue business and Ancapistan, you can do that. If you live however you want to live, as long as you're not violating the rights of others. And I pretty much just go from that goalpost of treating everybody with respect and dignity and allow everybody to live their life how they want to live. So that's sort of how I got to be what I'm doing now. I made my page because I was bored.
Usually, that's a very honest answer. Usually, it's like I had to invigorate others. I had to push this thing. I was bored. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, I followed another page. The first page that I think I followed was Vox Libertas.
Nice, yeah.
And then I was just, like, maybe I'll make some memes. And initially, the memes that I made were absolutely horrid and terrible. But I eventually.
It's okay, mine still sucks. So.
Yeah, I get a lot of low effort, low response ones, and especially since being multiple times shadow banned and threatened to be banned for posting plumber's cracks. That was a meme that really got them upset.
My favorite ones are the gang violence ones that Gramps gets about police stuff. It's like, what?
Well, they're not lying.
Yeah, it's
Not
like,
at all.
like I think we're on the same team. Instagram, what are you playing at?
Well,
yeah.
So we agree that they're a gang. We agree they're a gang, right?
We're
Gang of
making
thugs.
progress. So so you say like the 2012 election, right? That you sort of like first got into libertarianism, like more hardcore, right?
Yes, I voted for Ron Paul at the time and then continued to go in that direction and disappoint my parents.
Oh, they're disappointed. They're not like on board with it at all. They're neocons.
Oh no, they're total neocons. It's very sad.
That's intense.
It is. They're very they see the bad that the government does when it's a liberal in charge, right? Just typical conservative thing. It's like, those liberals are ruining the country. I'm like, yeah, but do you see what the people who are in charge now?
Guy? How about this guy, the one that just shits on the Fourth Amendment and due
but
process.
the economy.
Yeah, well, you know what? It says a lot. So, but he cares about business and the economy's good. So yeah. But it's like, Jesus fucking Christ, if anybody else did this, if a Democrat did this shit, you guys would be losing your goddamn minds.
Yeah, they're not really, as long as you're furthering, and this is a thing that gets me a lot about from that mindset, and I don't need to rag on any Christians in that way, but it's like, as long as, Christianity is doing okay, and you're putting those values first, the president who cheated on his wife, had a prostitute, and all this sort of stuff.
I do love those boomer memes where it's like, God first, president second, or country second. It's like, are you really putting God first? Like, look at the people you fucking support and their actions. Like, come on.
So you're saying the picture of Trump and Jesus hugging each other isn't real?
No, that did actually happen.
Oh, okay, good. I thought so.
Snopes fact checked it. That did actually happen.
Best pals. Best.
Not
pals.
actually. Not actually.
Jesus loves Trump. I mean, I guess pretty standard origin story. Same as a lot of us in the basic.
I'm a basic bitch.
radicalized and got into spreading the message. So I guess we just kind of jump into the meat of today.
So how did you want to do that? Because the main thing for me, okay, so coming from that perspective of, I see, where things could be better, right?
Yeah.
We see, as libertarians, that we're in a broken system, a tyrannical system that is enslaving people, abusing people, locking people in cages, justifying the murder of thousands and destabilizing their lives, but we don't give a shit because they're on the other side of the country. And, as long as we're getting our oil so we can drive our cars and everything like that, we're fine. So I would like everybody to be free. That's what a lot of us have, this viewpoint of, we want people to be free. We don't want people to be forced to do anything that they don't want to do. We want people to have consensual relationships and not to be abused and misused and have their lives completely ruined for just doing things that aren't hurting anybody else. So from that perspective,
Yes, I think your ideas are terrible.
Oh my god.
Oh no,
Well,
that was the test. That was the test. That was the test.
I like them. So
shit.
from that perspective of wanting people to be free,
I think your ideas are good. I'm glad y'all can hear me now.
me too.
For very brief context, Guns' mic wasn't working, so he decided to say something completely disruptive to test it.
Because I thought y'all were just ignoring me. So
No.
I was in the chat. I was like, can y'all hear me or y'all just being dicks? And then he said, say test. And I said, no, I'm just going to say some wild, inappropriate shit. And that's what I said. I'll be honest. I think your ideas are terrible.
So
but they're not.
remember what I was saying before we started recording? If we interrupt, you just pile through. This is why. This is why.
This is that time. Keep going.
Oops.
For me, I really love the ideas. I love talking about the ideas of libertarianism.
Nobody's attacking your ideas, man. That was
discussing. Of course. Shh. So
Later.
the ideals, I would like to see them implemented in my lifetime. I don't want to move to some South American country and, hope we can get along with their government to establish some sort of organization. Yeah, so what I would like is, how can we, in the system that we're currently in, make ourselves freer? Put ourselves in a position to where we can get people to not be thrown in cages for smoking some weed or, doing crack or pumping their veins full of heroin. I don't give a shit.
Jacking off in public.
Owning NFA items without fucking bullshit tax.
Right. If you want a fucking tank and you don't want to pay $200 per shot, then come live with us.
What about intentionally causing traffic jams?
There won't be any traffic. People
Violence
just
against
walk
people.
around. All cars are banned.
Okay, what if I
So-
just stand in the middle of a crowded walkway and hold my arms out, T-pose, and I just stay like that? Is that a violation of the NIP?
No, that's not a violation of the NIP.
No.
Driving.
What if I do that and spin?
Okay,
You'll
violation.
get dizzy.
No, I'm a dancer.
What I would like to do is figure out ways that we can implement our beliefs as best that we can within the system that we're currently in.
Right. And that's why you
So-
created the Free State Project back in 2001, right?
No, I actually very much like the Free State Project. I just don't want to live in New Hampshire.
Oh,
And
you didn't make this? I thought
think-
you made this.
No, I really like it though. The problem is that
Oh, I thought you did
They-
something.
Oh my
they've been
God.
doing that. No, I have done absolutely nothing but make memes and lifelong friendships. So the Free State Project is an inspiration for what I'm talking about. And the Free State Project, you have, for anybody who's not familiar with it, you can Google it or duck it up.
I could read a Wikipedia entry
You could do that.
if
Would
y'all
you like
or-
to?
Should I do that?
Do
Okay,
it.
yeah. The Free State Project is a political migration founded in 2001 to recruit at least 20,000 libertarians to move to a single low-population state. New Hampshire was the state that was selected in 2003 in order to make the state a stronghold for libertarian ideas. That's basically the point of the whole project. They just get everybody that's like-minded to move in someplace and then be like, hey, we're going to take over this joint and then leave you alone. Which is
Yep,
pretty
that's
fucking cool.
Their plan so far, I believe they've had 4,400 Free Staters move to New Hampshire, and they have about 22,000 currently who are pledged to move as well. My, not necessarily problem, but I think that there's a faster way we can do it, because the amount of people that are moving to New Hampshire that are not of the freedom mindset are moving at a faster rate than the people who are moving there to establish a free state. Also, New Hampshire can be very cold, and I'm from the South. So what I'm proposing is more so along the lines of the Free County Project. Now, most
So basically, like the
tyranny-
same thing, but just like way less powerful and cool.
easier to achieve. I'll say that.
Okay, yeah.
See, it's all in the
So-
marketing.
You would say it like that.
I would. So, most tyranny that people experience in their day-to-day lives is from the local government. You're constantly being monitored by police driving down the road. If you don't pay your taxes, who's going to come to your door and kick you out of the house?
Dude, I
Police.
completely agree. And one of the most annoying things to me is like talking to people that aren't libertarian, just like talking to like coworkers or like just random acquaintances and shit like that. If politics do come up, I'm still going to be libertarian when I talk politics. I'm not going to tell them like, yeah, I advocate for a stateless society. And let me tell you about this podcast. Like, I'm not going to do that shit, but like, I will still say libertarian things. And sometimes they're so removed from reality and from ideals of liberty, they will say things like they only refer to the government as the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, I mean, no, that's the state government. And they're like, yeah, but I mean, when I say government, I mean federal government. I'm like, well, it's all government, even if it's federal or state or local. I was like, the federal government has really not done shit to me. The only thing they do is like take 30% of my paycheck out the gate.
The only thing.
But like, other than that, I don't really.
No big deal.
I don't
No
deal.
big deal.
I mean, yeah, that's a big deal, but I don't deal with them like on a daily basis.
Well, a lot of states, they have income tax as well, so
Exactly. I
that'll
mean,
go
they
to
all
them.
take the shit. They all take
But your
it.
local
like,
county or your local city, that's
I actually
who
have to
will
deal with
come-
them.
Right. They'll come and confiscate your property if you don't pay property tax. They'll come take everything from you if you're not
Children
contributing.
with their tax dollars.
Right. That's where the police department comes from, or the sheriff's department, the local county or the local city municipality that you reside in. So let's just say, for example, this is how we could do it. If you have a low population county, I've researched a lot of different states, a lot of different small counties. If you could get 4,000 libertarian-minded people, right? There's about 500,000 people, I believe, that are part of the Libertarian Party, which that sucks. Yeah. But I think they only had like 16,000 paying members, but I think about 500,000 actual members, according to the wiki page. And then based on some studies for ideals or what you believe, some studies say there's about 7% of the population could be considered libertarian, up to 22%. So let's just say if we just had guns followers, half of guns followers, right, decided, hey, we're all going to move to one place because we live in a system where it's a majority rules. Currently, we're all very diluted as far as liberty people. If you're going to cast a vote, it really doesn't matter because there's about 99% of the population is voting for the neocons and the statist liberals. So if you were to take those 5,000 people and put them in a county where you've only got a few thousand people, now you have the majority. And with that majority, you can then take over the local government. You can have people run. Those people who run are contractually obligated to the organization that we form, whether the local Libertarian Party or wherever you want to do it. That those people who are elected are contractually obligated to fulfill those duties. They cannot renege on their obligations. Plus, they're one of us kind of thing. So we hope that their intentions are along the same lines. So they go into those positions. One of us. So the people who are elected will get the sheriff elected, you get the county board elected. At the county board level, you then eliminate all of these laws that are highly restrictive of how you live your life. And then the sheriff goes and tells all of the deputies, either you're fired or this is how we're going to do things now. We would want to maintain, essentially, since we are in a tyrannical government and a tyrannical system, we can't go straight to anarchism. We would establish or basically maintain the minarchy of the local county government structure.
Night watchman state kind of stuff on a local level.
Right, because that's a system that's in place. If the state sees there's a void there, they'll intervene. if the federal government sees that there's a void there, they may intervene. But if we maintain that figurehead, which the sheriff is a constitutional figurehead and can act as a buffer between us and the local state, and you can use, for example, the different sanctuary cities, states like Colorado, which weed is legal, but according to the federal government, it is illegal. You've got cities like Denver where mushrooms have been in a way decriminalized. You can at least use them to some extent. You've got Montana, which passed a law which had to do more along the lines with NFA items or for suppressors. So if you build, and this is just based off of my reading of the law and some articles I read, if you build a suppressor in Montana with parts from Montana and that suppressor doesn't leave Montana, then no, that was a lie. The Missouri thing was bogus, but the Montana thing is real.
Oh, really? Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So I think Idaho might have a similar thing, but as far as Montana is concerned, if that suppressor does not leave the state, the federal government has no jurisdiction. This is a state matter, and the state says you can have a suppressor. So taking those same sort of reference points of how the local government can resist the tyranny of the larger government and stand between the people just like it's supposed to, stand on behalf of the people, then possibly we can implement a system where people can be freer to whatever degree that we're able to. And that's the whole idea, is if we eliminate the police force that is constantly terrorizing people and stealing their property and throwing them in prison for stupid shit, that's a win in my book. I think that's a good thing. I think that's a success as far as my ideas are concerned.
It's definitely a success. But the main issue is if you're going to try to make your most independent as possible community, like, you know, all of my followers get together and we move to a fucking country county out in the middle of some state and elect our local government based on not fucking with anybody and stuff like that. There's still the issue of I'm sorry, I'm trying to say words that make me sound not stupid right now. As a community, yeah, it's going to be really hard. As a community, we still need things that our community doesn't have. So we would have to interact with other states or other counties and stuff like that. So, I mean, I think this is where your commie domes can come into play.
So did you want to say something, Bloody?
Oh, it's a hell of a thing to start digging into, but
yeah, but I mean,
yeah. So self-reliance and stuff. If you're going to say that you don't want anything to do with the larger state, you know, like on a federal level, there's going to have to be a certain degree of self-reliance because that's like a foundational part of it.
Everybody needs a plate.
Exactly, and so that would be something that you'd kind of be, I assume, looking for when you go for one of these counties. You're going to look for somewhere that can be as self-reliant as possible, and then where they're not self-reliant, improve upon that before, like, really cutting the umbilical cord, right?
Right. We don't really want to cut the umbilical cord or draw too much attention to ourselves as if we're saying, you know what, fuck you, we're just separating from you. No, we still want people to be able to travel. People are still going to be American citizens. We're not going to just say, hey, if you come here, guess what? You can't leave. So people are still going to be American citizens. We're going to try to wean off as much as we possibly can and take those victories that we can take. Now, as far as sustainability, one of the ideas that I want to put forward, and that's the other thing, is my way is not the only way. The way that I envision things, every day I learn something new that adjusts how I think things should be. But there's a million ways to skin a cat. There's even more ways to deal with a society. So, from my perspective, the best way that we could achieve this and have great PR is to be pitching it as a green city. So as all these people come together, we start building the infrastructure to be a sustainable city that's environmentally conscious. Those are all things that are very good in my mind. I'm a very environmentally minded person. I would like, the earth to not be polluted primarily. I'm not too sold on the whole issue of global warming, but pollution, I personally do not like drinking, shit in my water. I would not go and live in Flint. So there's a lot of things that we can do to make our environment better, to make our air quality better, to not over-industrialize in certain ways. So pitching a green city initiative type of thing.
So we got to go back to using stone tools.
No, you want to be as efficient.
Shit.
No, we're not going and-prim. Basically, and now the term Arcology, which I was actually introduced to by Bloody, and it basically encompasses what I would want to be doing.
It's nice to have a label.
Yes, it is very nice to just say, hey, guess what? You can wiki it. So whenever you're dealing with something like that, Arcology is the combination of architecture and ecology. It is a field of creating architectural design principles for very densely populated, ecologically low-impact human habitats. Now, there are so many advancements that are being made right now in how we farm. So one thing that I would push as much as possible is if we can create the efficiencies for our food production to where we're not using acres and acres of land, wasting so much water, and then dousing it all in pesticides that we then have to wash off with water again to get our crops. But we use methods like aeroponics, which, just to give an explanation for aeroponics, is where you're growing plants in a controlled indoor environment usually. And that's the best way to do it, because without any interaction with the outside, you're not getting any bugs. So you never have to use any pesticides. And aeroponics,
Nope.
No,
but keep
never.
going. Nope, but keep going.
Okay. So certain systems. So there's a lot of systems that are in place. The ones that I've researched don't use any pesticides. Aeroponics applies a mist of water onto the plant roots. The plants can be put into like a net material where they're grown, and you can have 6 to 7 harvests a year as opposed to maybe 1 or 2 the normal way where you're growing it in the ground. So there's a lot of efficiencies that we can do to increase the production of food. And if we have these farms within the county, they produce jobs, and they also have a way that we can produce food that is then sold, bringing income into the community. The more self-sustaining the local community is, to where we're not dependent on other things, the more self-reliant we can be. And one of my intentions would be, if we can make these communities, these counties, these cities, as self-sustaining as possible and self-reliant, then they're essentially collapse-proof. Because we all know eventually there's going to be a collapse.
And
So
that's a big part of this idea, where it's and part of libertarianism, be a producer rather than a consumer.
Mm.
Once you get a local community to be a producer rather than relying on other people, then that's a great starting point for, if there is, as you were saying, like some sort of collapse, that community is going to be well insulated against that. And that's part of the whole arcology thing as well, where it's like a city is entirely plugged into itself, and then it's putting stuff out rather than needing things from the outside. And I mean, that means the whole federal government like collapses. That city is going to be that can carry on as it's not going to be missing out on trucks, not coming in, or food and gas and all that kind of shit. So it's very much within the libertarian mindset to do something like this, whether it's within the current who left? No. Hang on. Yeah. All right. It's within libertarian ideology, within either like a fully anarchist society or even a current day federal government, to have something like this, because it works in either. Self-reliant,
Test.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, and that's what we would like to do, is if there's less waste, if there's more sustainability, if you lower the cost of producing food, if you're taking, like, say for example, there's a lot of cities, even DC for example, to where they're taking the organic waste that people produce, taking it to a facility like a methane digester facility, where they turn the organic waste into methane gas, which is then able to fuel vehicles. So you can take your community and get it as off the grid, off of the system that exists within our country to where we're dependent on oil, you can run your vehicles off of natural gas. You can buy a vehicle right now that is biofuel that runs natural gas or unleaded fuel. And so there's a lot of things that we can do to make our society more efficient, more sustainable, less wasteful. Because waste is money gone. And the more that we save our money, the more we can do. People are constantly wasting food, wasting materials. So there's a lot of things that we can do. There's, the methane, there's the food production. You can have fish farms or things of that nature, locally grown food, have your animal farms.
Well, I feel like this city has a two-part system. One is the political part of trying to get as far away from the federal government as you possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
And one is trying to be being good for the environment and everything else.
Right.
Correct?
It's not just being good for the environment, but creating the efficiencies that allow a society to not, essentially, you want to make it to where, and not controlling everybody's lives, because that's the thing, is this is a place that you can voluntarily join, but that you can make people's lives better. You can provide better quality food. You provide, not necessarily providing the sense of like a communism kind of thing, but you provide it as the services are provided, like the grocery stores and everything of that nature. So
okay.
Go ahead.
So basically,
as far as the government goes, I don't see it as being an end-all, be-all plan that's going to be perfect. What I see it as, you're just trying to get as far away from the government before there's any kind of collapse or whatever. Remove yourself from as much government as you can. And I think that's a possibility. I think there's been proven facts in this country where it's actually happened, where large groups have moved into small communities and taken over the local governments. There's the Guru out in Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
They took over the whole police department. They took over I think they were working towards the county and maybe even getting on the state government and having their voice said. And I agree with that, as long as the whole thing is to get rid of government. I don't want to see us move in somewhere and then they're like, well, we're going to run this and we're going to run this. No, your only job is to get rid of every law. The police's job is their only job, and they'd only be voluntary. Like there wouldn't be any pay for them. But when the federal government shows up, the police are just there to go, no, we got this. We got this. And you have to set up like your private security right away. You got to teach people right away that you can't rely on the government for anything. We're just using these people against the government because that's all we have right now.
Right. And one of the things that you can do, and that's limiting the local government to where it has almost no influence in the daily lives of people. And so one other thing that you can do, and this whole system of making things more efficient, providing better services, better housing options, and everything like that, some ways that it can be easier for people to understand is, okay, if we went to an anarchist society, right, just right off the board, who has the capacity to make things, to create cities, to start for the businesses and everything like that? Well, in Kapistan, you would most likely have corporate city-states. That's what most ANCAPs expect to happen.
This sounds scary.
But that's what most ANCAPs would expect to happen, is that the people with the most money would then find ways to capitalize by providing services and becoming the most attractive option, by providing the best services, by providing the best housing options, the best food, the best security, everything like that, the best hospitals even. Those businesses would then capitalize on providing the services that government no longer provides.
Okay, and I agree with that. And here's my thing, is you go right from us all moving somewhere to we're in the perfect ecological. We're doing the best farming. Some of this technology doesn't even exist now, or if it is, it's not efficient or cost effective.
Yeah.
So right now, tomorrow, we go buy 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 acres in this place.
Mm-hmm.
It's not going to be these high-rise buildings with this awesome infrastructure. There's going to be some people living in cabins, some tents, some... How do you take it from there and move it up to where you want it to be?
As individuals, it's really, that would be difficult having, as a business entity, like say, for example, if you have a benefactor, if you've got somebody who is a Bill Gates level individual who's not a globalist and sees the benefit of providing a place for individuals to be individuals, that would help a lot. You could do crowdfunding if you want to do that for creating the central systems. But even just the example of people moving there and going and living their lives, building their own houses, not being a centralized ecosystem, but everybody just haphazardly building your businesses, living your lives. If you can create some industries in the area, if you have people with businesses and ideas that they can produce incomes rather than just workers, but actual visionaries and industry leaders, that would be very helpful for these sort of things.
That's one of the problems, is to move to somewhere where taxes are low, there's not a huge population, there's not going to be industry there to begin with. And to bring industry there, there's a pretty good chance industry hasn't started because the place in the middle of nowhere, it's hard to get to, or the land's not easy to build on, or the natural resources aren't close by. So I mean, it sounds like a great idea, but it kind of sounds like a bunch of hippies are going to move there.
Well, yeah. So
and then there's no means to actually bring industrialization to the area, because without any kind of manufacturing, you can't be independent without your own manufacturing and a means, unless everyone's a tech guy and is manufacturing their own apps and programs and stuff like that, and that's pretty hard. You can't. It's hard to have another Silicon Valley.
Yeah. So the thing about this is, when I was discussing Arcology and stuff, the first one that was attempted was a little place called Arcology north of Phoenix, Arizona, and so it's just this total experiment to try and create an Arcology, and there was no means for industry up there. It was just like, let's buy some cheap land, and a bunch of architecture students are going to fuck around in the dirt for a few decades and see what we can build, just conceptually. And obviously, it failed because there are a bunch of hippie architects. They don't have the means or the industry to fund this thing. And so the ideas are fucking excellent, but there's no capital behind it. There's no reason for this city to exist, and so obviously it's going to fail. So it
comes down to supply and demand. If it costs you way more to ship material, build something out in the middle of nowhere, you'll never get anyone to invest in it.
Let's say there is a place rich in resources, and a company is like, you know what, I want to build my plant here, and I'm going to need a high amount of workers, so I'm going to fund like an Arcology. Just keep all my workers here on site, happy as can be, and keep it efficient. They don't have to drive to work because it's all self-contained, so time, which is a resource, is maximized. There's no wasted time. People are all happy. They don't have to sit in traffic for hours. All that stuff is grown on site. They don't have to drive miles and miles to go and grab groceries, etc. That's of value to a company to create something like that, where they're going to keep everything on site and keep it as efficient as possible. And for a corporation, if they're invested in their workers, they want to keep people for years and years, these specialists, it's best to keep them happy. So that's where an Arcology and like a city of this nature would make sense. If there was a corporation that wanted to back a plan like this, it could be done tomorrow. If they're like, right, this county out in the middle of nowhere, we've got a plant out here. We can produce industry. We're going to need people from all different sectors, and just plop it right here in this low population county. That's where this would be, like, it could happen tomorrow.
Right.
So,
That's the thing. Currently, most people are working for other people. People who took the risk. People who became industrious. People who became industry leaders. Built a business up and made a corporation that has multi-millions or even billions of dollars of value within this company. So the thing is, for it to become something of that scale, you have to have people who are of similar interest, of similar values, who have positioned themselves to become those things. It's not just going to happen out of thin air. You've got to have people who are actually...
I understand, and that's another gamble with the whole situation, is by starting a small city state, is getting someone to invest that thinks, but then again, now your whole economy is based on one industry, which is never good.
Well, it doesn't have to be one industry. Look at Amazon, for example. It is in multiple industries. It is branching out as much as it possibly can to provide as many services as they can. And they're doing very well at it. So there's many ways that you can have an umbrella organization that then has these sub-organizations that are meeting those needs. And the base needs of...
Yeah.
And so that's something that you can do. Now this is what I'm talking about. What can we do? What are some things that we can accomplish?
No, I understand that, and I appreciate everything you're trying to do. What I'm saying, though, is then you move into the hills of Kentucky. Logistics alone, no one's going to invest in a corporation where it costs twice as much to truck materials in and truck materials out.
Well, that's part of the Arcology model. So part of the Arcology model is that you don't do that trucking in for long. The idea is to become self-sustaining as a community, so that way everything is developed locally. You try to develop as much as you possibly can locally, and you're creating businesses and industries by doing that. If you're growing your food locally, those farms need to be manned. That's an industry in and of itself. If you're having animals, or if you have a fish hatchery, and all the businesses that are then developed by the residents as they are able to create needed services themselves. So there's a lot that goes into building a local economy, and I'm not going to try to sell myself as the person that has the solution and knows everything that goes into it. But there are things that can be accomplished, and the efficiencies that you can achieve by doing these things.
I understand the benefits of local economy. I always try to invest in local businesses. Any chance I can get, the more local they are, I always invest. But in today's day and age, technology, we like to say that technology will be the end of government eventually.
Mm-hmm.
That there's so many products that people want the chance to have all those in one community are really hard to do. To be self-sustaining in today's day and age without reaching out. So to not reach out, then you have to produce more than what it just takes you to survive, so you can trade out for other products.
Right. So whenever you start the plan of sustainability, the first things that you gotta be sustainable in are the basic needs of life. If you have, a water source, if you're growing your food, and people have housing, those are the basic needs of life. Anything else that people want, if those industries develop and they see profit and they're able to build a business that is profitable to providing those services, that's great. That's, a capitalist system or a free market system. So we've got to continue to talk about it. We got to talk about these sort of things to say, if the government totally collapsed tomorrow, how would we survive? Because most of the businesses are going to go under, because if there's no dollar for them to work off of, most of the employees are going to dip out. Most of their profits are going to be gone. All of their savings are going to be gone. Everybody's just going to want food and water. So what can we do to create a city, a community, a county that if there were any sort of collapse, that we would not be, oh shit, we're all just gonna fucking die.
Well, I respect the hell out of that. Like, at least you're looking for something to keep humanity going.
Yeah, that's the primary thing, is
in the most free sense possible.
Right. Because we want people to be free, but there's also people have other needs. And so if you aren't, and that's the other thing, if you create, let's say, for example, a business, a corporation that can meet those needs as efficiently as possible, people aren't going to go to government. If you remove the fear that people have, the daily fears, the instability of life that people fear, and the fear mongering that is constantly put on us by the media and the government that makes it seem like we need them. Because that's the main thing, is if there was a revolution, right? And then there goes that government. Well, most of the population really likes having a government. They have not been converted to the ideals of saying, you know, we can live on our own. We do not need a government. Most of them believe we need a government.
Paradigm shift.
Yeah,
Right,
I think
and
that's like the big staple of this whole argument is people are always like, well, you know, anarchy hasn't worked before. And it's like, yeah, it's called innovation. You have to show people that innovation is possible in society and government, not just on like small scale, like my toaster can cook shit 20 seconds quicker now. We got to show people that you can do things without the government. It doesn't have to hold your hand, and that private citizens can perform services a lot better than the government, more efficiently, less wastefully, you know, just the whole 9 yards. And until you put that into practice on something that you can see, something that you can visit, something you can read up on, beyond theoretical, we're not going to convert the masses. It's going to be just people reading books, people preaching, but it's going to be a minority thing. So when you have something physical that can be seen, that's like a leading example.
Yeah.
That's when you're going to get tons of people being like, fuck, why aren't we doing this?
Right. Practice what we preach. If this is what we believe, then we should be able to do it. So if we are able to remove the local government constraints that are primarily like the zoning, and, you know, if you're not operating based off of their rules of how you build or how you do your business,
and how you need to be licensed.
Right. If you remove those constraints and allow the businesses to function and to grow, can we do what we believe we should be able to do? We say if there was no government, we'd be fine. How many of us honestly would be fine if the government stopped existing tomorrow? If the dollar was gone, how many of us would starve to death? How many people would, society would, in a lot of ways, the current society that we have is very dependent on the government. Every day you are using government bills with an expectation that people will honor that value. If that value is gone, who has actually prepared for that?
And you know what? I often come back to our podcast with Skulls and Scalps on this and think about her relation to the Native Americans and how dependent they are on the government, because they have literally been living off the government for 200 years. And some of their brainwashing and just dependency of the government is ridiculous. Like, they're poor now, and then if the government pulled out, they would have nothing to do, because they've been taught for 200 years to just, hey, you can't do anything yourself, but we'll help you out. Right. And they don't really help them out.
Yeah, and masses of Americans are like that. Not quite so subjugated, or at least they don't realize they are. But
yeah, for any of the Rick and Morty fans, you know, Rick collapsed the society of the entire universal galactic government by destroying their currency. Yeah, so everybody's like, you know, can you do this? I can do it for money. Yeah. And so that's the thing. If there was no dollar amount, who's operating your water facility that you're getting your water from if you're not on a well? And on a well, you still need electricity. Who's manning the electrical facility, the generation plant, the dams, and everything like that to make sure everything's still running. Those people aren't just going to go into their jobs out of the goodness of their hearts. Most people are very, self-serving, and they're going to want money. Most of them, the first thing they're going to do is go out and try to collect as much food as possible. And that's just what's going to happen if there is no dollar. So how can we, as people who believe in liberty and believe that we can do these things, how can we set an example? How can we limit government without rebelling or, through violent overthrowing? How can we work within the system that we currently have to make us as free as possible and to prepare ourselves for a real cutting of the umbilical cord?
Yeah.
Okay. I brought this up before we started the podcast with Empress. Is more of a on her subject base. Like, how do you think about once you start this city state and you establish your own mini government that you're going to use to battle the other government? And I know that sounds bad for most of our followers that I'd be saying it like that, but I agree with if you're going to get a mayor that does nothing except go, no, we're not going to have any laws, and his whole job for the first year is to get rid of every law, then you got to do what you got to do. But damn, where was I going with this?
You're talking about the issue
how do you feel?
How
How do you feel once you get this government going? How do you feel about using that government to accept money from the federal government for like road projects?
That
Or
like a drive to
to try to get more into the eco base, like try to get.
There's actually federal programs where they give grants towards eco or green projects, and honestly, it's money that was stolen, and it's just going to go to oppressing people or possibly building bombs to murder people. So I have no problem taking money from the government because it's just going to be used for evil anyways.
Kind of a Robin Hood mentality. I can see it.
Yeah, they're going to give it to you. They're giving it to all these people and just wasting money. They're wasting so much money. Why would we say no to quote unquote free money?
No, honestly, I don't have a problem with it. Like if we could get it to advance our cause, I would use it in a second. I just want to see how you responded to the question.
Yeah, I have no problem taking money from the government. Less money for them means less stupid shit that they can do with it. So
I mean, if we could somehow get some money and put some landmines for the Fed boys and use government money for that, I'm down with that.
Yeah, there's like 5,000, I think, ATF employees. So
wait. I mean, that's guns following already doubles that.
Right. So,
exactly.
But me personally, okay, how I want to pitch this this is our image as what we're doing. We do not want to be seen as violent or as crazy idealists who just hate the government. What we're doing is we believe people at this point in human history can do better than the systems that we've been using for millennia. We think humanity can do better, and we're going to show you how. With freedom, So
yeah, I mean that's something that I think a lot of our younger audience needs to hear, because obviously we all talk about violent overthrow all the fucking time. It's like our bread and butter. But while it's invigorating and it's like, it's a laugh to talk about, that is the last fucking resort. That's response to confiscation of property and your rights being violated in the most extreme way, where you are being made a subject forever. There's no coming back from a firearm confiscation. You're a slave then. And so that's the extreme response. And so before
there have been so many compromises already.
Oh yeah.
That it's
just
like
it's just
so
but
I had a little epiphany here recently. The Boogaloo is its own entity. No one can hit the Boogaloo button. The Boogaloo is gonna happen when it happens, and it's going to let us all know about it. And the chances are that the way it starts, however it starts, those people have never heard the word boogaloo before in their life.
just Bubba sing out in a shack like, "Hey, the fuck are you on my property for?"
Whether history comes back to blaming it on the government or blaming it on the radicals that started the shooting, that will come down to who wins. But like wherever it starts, the people in the government who start it by making some kind of ridiculous law that starts it, or the person that just makes the attack, and then everyone else is like, yeah, that is what we need to do. It's going to happen, and those people have never heard the word boogaloo in their life.
I hope that like I said, I don't want to die. I would like to, help make a better world post-boogaloo, if there were to be a boogaloo, or post-collapse, which there will be a collapse. Possibly the boogaloo and collapse coincide. But for me,
I think the collapse is going to cause the boogaloo.
That's the most likely option.
Once people start starving and can't get food, they're going to start questioning government instantly. And then it's just a matter of, like, with the Great Depression, does the government have the capability to round up the money to appease everybody before they start revolting? And I don't know if they are. Everyone's broke as fuck now.
I mean, we've done like 4 episodes on that, but
I think every episode leads into it.
It's all about boogaloo. It's just a boogaloo podcast.
We got a guest, and he wants to talk about it. I'm going to talk about it.
My ideals. I'm a very hopeful person. I'm not a very like, all right, we're all gonna fucking die. Yeah, I'm not a doomer. I see that humans have a lot of potential. I believe that humanity can work together, not in a communist sort of way, not in any way, but understand that our best interests are treating each other well, are working together.
Voluntary cooperation.
Right.
I agree with that 100%. I believe humanity is awesome. I think a lot of the problems we see with humanity is through media that pumps that shit up. Now, my question to you is, do you believe government will allow us to get to that freedom state without their resistance?
Yes. Because the way that you do that is you do it low key. You get your people to move there. You stay within the local government. You still participate in the larger system. We try to use for example, the Agorist method of just don't support the government. Don't let them tax you, because what they don't know, they can't tax. So without the local government working as an eye for the greater system and limiting people, if you still have a business, like say, for example, if you've got an online business where you sell products, that's sort of like an import-export kind of tariff situation out of the county. You're likely going to be taxed. You're going to be watched by the federal government if you're working within their system and taking American dollars and everything like that. One of the goals of the local community would try to get off of the dollar, go to some sort of a cryptocurrency.
Interesting.
That would be something that you'd want to do, because if the dollar collapses, you need to have some way of...
And make the whole community, like you go to the gas station and you're not paying in the American dollar, you're either paying in silver, gold, or fucking Bitcoin or
I like the idea of a silver-backed cryptocurrency, and there are some that have been tested. I do not know enough on the subject to where I can say anything definitively, but I like the idea of having a stable coin. Having a coin like Bitcoin that is fluctuating so much, I don't want to go into a grocery store where I've got digital price tags where it's constantly fluctuating based on the market.
Libya was trying to, I believe it was Libya. You guys can fact check me if I'm wrong. But they were the ones trying to use their natural resources to back their cryptocurrency.
Mm-hmm.
Or their dollar. I don't think they had a cryptocurrency then, but they were actually trying to use, this is what we got. It will go up if we find another gold mine or if we find another diamond mine, your money will be worth more. If we don't, it might be worth a little less.
Right. Whatever we can do, and as this thing develops, if you've got a corporation that has put itself in this position to do these sort of things, likely they're going to have somebody that they hire or is attracted to the endeavor that can help figure these sort of things out. But the more that we have these kind of conversations, the more people who see the benefit of doing something like this, they'll look into it. There may be some young person listening who says, you know what, I want to go into the study of currency and figure out the most efficient way that a local community can operate independently of the greater system. And the more we have these conversations and create solutions, the better we'll be in the future.
Yes.
Finally, an optimistic message on this fucking podcast.
Yeah, right? It's all doom and gloom. Like, I'm arguing him over here, but it's just semantics. Like, all he wants is us to be as free as we can at any given moment. He wants to work, and he wants to make us freer.
How is this any different
the
than
things
just electing a local libertarian government?
Pretty much. And that's one thing, is it's a cultural thing too. The culture of that community where, the majority of the people who live there are of similar values of treating each other with respect and changing the cultural desires. Like right now, in America, you have the American dream, right? You got to go into 200,000.
Do we? Come on.
The idealism of you need to have a new car, you need to have a $200,000 home, and you need to be making at least $50,000 a year and be in debt for 30 years for that home.
Well, I got like 2 of those 4 things.
Right. Trust me, I've participated in this stupid system as well, and we can do better. Humanity can provide better solutions. Housing should not be that expensive. The current housing market is really ridiculous. I've worked in construction.
I agree with that, but I also, in the past 40, 50 years, the amount of square footage that a person feels that they need to sustain themselves has like doubled or tripled.
Right, and now you have the resurgence of the tiny home.
Yes, which I totally agree with.
Right. The more a culture starts to understand that, there are people who live in fucking dirt huts and are happier than you. Okay?
And you're walking around like 4,000 square foot home just miserable. It's like, what?
Right. It's like, what can we do? And that's the thing, is a more minimalist lifestyle, a more locally sustainable lifestyle we're going to set people free from the tyranny of the local government, but also try to set people free from this fucking stupid system that we operate in, to where people work their ass off 40 plus hours a week, and maybe they get 2 weeks of vacation a year, they get their weekends and everything. Maybe we can do things better. And if people think more minimalist, think of, less I need to have things, less consumer driven, you can save more money. You can be more free as an individual from all of your things. And this is something that doesn't appeal to everybody. These are, ideals that can help certain people. But I think as a whole, the consumer driven system that we're in, to where people live outside of their means rather than within their means, is turning people into debt slaves. And I would like people to be free from debt as well.
The consumer debt slave thing is a totally different podcast. Like that, yeah. I could talk about that forever. It's a paradigm shift where people have to quit keeping up with the Kardashians or keeping up with the Joneses. And I know tons of people, good friends of mine, that they keep up with the Joneses. They need that fucking 5th TV or that 6th TV, or the guy next door got a new truck, so I need a new truck. And it's like, do you even need a truck? Couldn't you be driving like a Honda Civic or something? Like, why do you need a fucking truck?
Like, that's the thing, is people need to understand, okay, yes, our current system with the government, that's wrong. We need to change that. But you know what? There's a lot of things about our society that can change as well, about what we expect out of life or what we value in life. It's a change of culture. It's a paradigm shift. People should change.
I can't wait to have you back for that episode. I think that you'll be a good guest for that.
Yeah,
I can get into that for a minute, and then we can also go into like the whole education culture and the spending the money for it, and yeah, we got a lot of shit.
Yeah, it's if we can focus more on less, we're all gonna fucking die or they're gonna die, but focus more on what are the solutions, what are the things that whenever we talk about Ancapistan, what are things that we can do to make ourselves more free right now, and what are the systems that we're going to have to understand need to be implemented for us to actually be free if there was no government. Because it's not all just going to sort itself out. There's going to be a lot of chaos, or we're going to have things in place that are going to make things a whole lot less chaotic.
All right. Well, I'm going to say I came up with some resistance. And I'm going to continue to have resistance. That's just okay. That's just the libertarian nature.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest problem right now is that you don't have a name for it.
Structured voluntarism is one I was playing with.
All right, well, it's a working title.
Yeah.
Tweak label.
We'll tweak it a little bit and make it a little more, poppy for the kids.
Agorism in action. Systemic. There are different ways.
But next time we have you on, you're gonna have a name for it. I fucked up a bunch of shit at work today because I was trying to think of a name for it, and I came up with nothing. I had nothing. I came up with a bunch of shit.
That was a good investment of your time, buddy.
I got paid for it, so it is what it is.
There's coming up with a term that's catchy and isn't going to get you, ridiculed is very difficult. But I appreciate you guys having me on, and hopefully I'm not 100% right on everything, and you bringing up points or counterpoints or things that's like have you thought of this? That's what we need to do. A discussion is not just one person having an idea and saying, you know what, this is how society needs to be run.
I believe
Other
that
people
happened in Jonestown.
Yeah. So we don't want to do that. We don't want to have some dictatorial, this is how things have to be done. The more people discuss these things, the more people are energized and thinking, what are the solutions? Let's come up with solutions to these problems that we see that are affecting our society, that are making people's lives terrible, that are making people's lives really sucky, and make people depend on the government. That's the other thing, is creating a society to where you eliminate the desire for government completely.
Yeah, you got to give yourself the best hand before you even start playing the game, if you can,
Well, he's talking like paradigm shift through just change of how we do things.
Well, yeah.
Like you don't need help with this. We can do this. We'll get rid of that, and then hopefully it changes the minds of the people.
Right.
Like, I can make more money living in Ancapistan or whatever you're going to come up with your name for your city state.
How we currently do things is in the context of the Empire of America. And if there's no Empire of America, things are going to be dramatically different. A lot of people are very close-minded because they haven't been around the world. They haven't seen, and that's the thing, we have TV, we've got computers, you can see how other people live all around the world. And like I said earlier, there's people who still
Is it because they haven't, or because they refuse to accept it?
They don't understand the underpinning structures that keep our society afloat. And whenever you start to look at those structures and see how rotted they are and how very precarious our current situation is, people might start realizing, we need a different way of doing things.
Or they cling to them. Because the dangers of nationalism, but that's an episode of its own.
Yeah, I see the problem is people wanting a better thing, a better way to do things, but not being able to actually make the change.
Right.
Not being able to give up the brainwashing that they've always been told, well, you need this. This is the only way you can get this. No, there's 100 different ways to do that.
Right, and there's so many things that are happening right now. I mean, the advent of crowdfunding, where individuals can crowdfund, pool their resources to where they fund something that they all have a mutual interest in. If you were to crowdfund a city, what could you accomplish just for laying the foundations of buying the land?
Anglo crowdfunded a laptop
Yeah.
to do this podcast by eating a piece of paper, and he's not even here.
That fucker.
It seems like those people invested their money poorly.
Poorly.
Yeah.
I thought about that today, and I'm like, man, if you were going to go in for like 6 more months, I'd consider it paid off. But geez.
It's like, hey,
come on,
Anglo,
Anglo.
I would like that button. Well, now we can enjoy him getting his ass kicked in video games, so that works too.
I'm not going to enjoy it. There's no enjoyment for that for me. Watch him get beat up in video games.
Well, Bloody can just take it upon himself to put together a compilation of him just becoming completely wrecked, and you can enjoy that.
No, I won't. No. Watching anyone play a video game is so horrible for me.
Did they not have
I'm
those
not
back in the
watching the
20s?
No, I grew up on video games. And my kids play them now, and I'm like, I don't want to watch this shit.
Yeah, I've never been into sports or anything of that nature where I'm like, I would like to be playing this. I don't really care about somebody else playing it. So that's where I come from for that. But yeah, we miss Anglo here right now, I guess.
We do.
I think he's going to be on next episode. Maybe. But
He better be.
Saturday.
yeah,
You're back?
Okay, wait, Empress,
watch it.
you were supposed to put together some questions
I already
and
did.
contribute for
I
your
already
first
asked
time.
one. How's
Ask
it any
5
different
more.
than just a libertarian city, like a city with a libertarian mayor? It doesn't really sound subversive at all.
Okay, a libertarian mayor doesn't sound subversive. And I really haven't given much consideration for the mayor.
No, those were two separate questions. The plan doesn't sound very subversive. You're still participating heavily in the system. You're legitimizing it by voting. You're not completely separated from the federal government. It just seems like a lot of these things could be done better on an individual level.
I like the whole legitimize it. Like, how do you feel legitimizing the system?
How do I feel about legitimizing the system?
Yeah, by voting and being a part of the system, you are making the system more powerful in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Every more person that believes in it. So if you're...
And with that, how do you maintain power every 4 years or however long the city elections are?
Okay, let's take it one at a time. So participating in the voting system is encouraging the system or supporting it mentally, or even, you're voting. The system still exists. And to that I say, it's, I'm trying to get what wins we can. If we completely remove the system as it is, we will most likely not succeed because there'll be a void there. If we take over the system with our contractually obligated individuals and maintain the system, you can change the laws. You can change how often they have the elections. There's plenty of counties who have done it in a corruptive kind of way to maintain their power as corrupt officials. If the people who are elected go in to the county board and change those rules, or even just every 4 years, hey, I really hope we still have the population of people who can continue to vote in the people we need. Usually like less than 50% of people actually vote. So if you have a population of 3,000 who are originally there, less than half of them vote, and you've got 5,000 people who are actively incentivized to vote because that's why they're fucking there, then I really hope you're able to maintain that system. As far as from a philosophical, moral perspective of supporting the system that exists, I'm currently getting taxed right now, and those tax dollars are being used to murder people. I'm not a fan of that. If I do not participate in that system, I will most likely be thrown in a cage or I'll be a bum. I don't like either of those options. And if we, from the point of taking over the local government, continue to work and find ways that we can wean ourselves out of that system, and like I said, other people will get involved. They'll be like, hey, what about doing this? Fantastic. That's a great idea. Let's do it. There's so many things that we can do that are possible. I don't know everything that we can do. There's certain things that we want to take what wins we can. If we take over that local government, right, and make it to where the local police force is not assaulting, molesting, abusing, throwing people in cages, that's a win for our perspective. That's a win for our belief system, because that's a daily thing that people go through. So if we use the system that currently exists to undo the system or to remove the things that are negatively affecting people, I don't have a problem with it. If somebody is a libertarian purist to the extent that they will not participate in that, then I support their decision to do so. They just won't move there.
It just seems like it's temporary, like one election and it can all just go away and go back to that.
Well, that's
yes,
using
yes.
the quote. Wait, we have the quote, right? The cost of liberty is eternal vigilance, right? So that's the same thing with any society that we have. If you were to have Ancapistan, you're still going to have people who are like, hey, you know what? I would like other people's stuff. I would like to have a system that my beliefs are forced on other people. Well, the vigilance of the people to keep that at bay is the most important thing, because it'll constantly rear its head. It is the obligation of the people to keep those things at bay, whether it's with a small local government, whether it's with a large federal government. The reason we have what we have is because people compromised and allowed that to grow. So if you've got a population of people who move there and are committed to those ideals, and you change the culture of the people, that's how you maintain those sort of things.
Fully agree.
I like it.
You're pretty constitutionally protected if you run a local government that way too, against the federal government. I mean, obviously, it won't make you completely safe, but there is more leeway for you to run a local government in that aspect, and you have more protection that way. Whereas if you did it all on your own, you could be pretty screwed.
Right. The sheriff is a constitutional authority, and there's a lot of precedent for sheriffs resisting the actions of federal and state government on the people that they are elected to represent. So there's a lot that you can go into that sort of constitutional law. Most libertarians don't give a shit about the Constitution. I'm very Spooner-minded in that regard, but it's what exists. So if we can use it for our benefit, then let's use it for our benefit.
I think there's a lot of merit to going down that route. I mean, obviously, we all have our different mindset about how useful government is, how honest it is, and all that, and if we should even be involved at all with our philosophy. But really, any peaceful route we can take before we go to let's boog, let's start shooting, I think is worth exploring, even if it's.
Oh yeah.
What if you're ready to bug, but you know it's not going to happen for a while, so you're like, well, I still want to move to fucking Don't Tax Me City because it's better than what I'm living in now.
Well, yeah,
exactly. I mean, how many of us would not want to move there, you know?
I'm willing to give it a shot. Right if I think I can make a living there and not be hassled, I'm willing to give it a shot. And the weather's got to be okay too.
I really like the idea of Tennessee. I think it's the most, climate. You get all 4 seasons. I've been there a lot.
I don't have a problem with Tennessee. I would move there.
I
don't like the snow, but I would handle the snow to be able to hang out in the mountains.
Yeah, I
definitely
like it. It's a lot of water in that part of the country. So
whiskey, good shit. Good shit happened in Tennessee.
Yeah, so I've looked at a lot of counties there. So if you were, for example, take over one of those counties, Tennessee's got a good history of rebellion too. You had the example of the War of Athens, right, where the local government was trying to keep themselves in power by manipulating the votes, and so I think it was actually veterans who were like, no, this shit's not happening here, and so they held like the sheriff and the people in charge of the election board and everything at gunpoint and like, let us count the ballot. So,
yeah, it was veterans.
Right. And so I really don't like the way a lot of young people are going, especially people who see the liberty movement and they see, yes, the injustice of our government, and especially young men, and I'm not going to Jordan Peterson anybody, but a lot of young men, see this injustice, and young men want to fight. They want to fight for what they believe in. They want to fight against this injustice. And so they're all I've talked to a lot of them. I get a lot of messages from young people talking about blowing up government buildings. And I advise them not to do that. I do not want these people murdering anybody. I do not want them blowing anything up and ruining their own lives. I think there's other ways that we can do things. And the more hope that we give people, especially these young people who are growing up, and you see this happening right now, even in the context of this Greta Thunberg girl. They see the things, she's been lied to. She's been fed a whole lot of horseshit. That's
a whole lot of horseshit.
But so many young people see the things that are wrong. They see the injustice, but a lot of them are just being fed a lot of horseshit. They need to be geared. They need to be guided to see, okay,
not a lot, man. Every one of them. I'm going to tell you, for someone, I got a kid Greta's age, and I got a kid a couple years older than Greta. And it's a daily struggle about telling them how it is and what they've been told.
Right. It's a cultural thing. It's an education thing. It's a peer pressure thing. I mean, me just going onto the Explorer of Instagram, I'm just like, my goodness, we're fucked.
I hope everyone has these feelings. I go back and forth every day. Like, maybe not every day. Sometimes it lasts for a couple days, but the liberty movement's going good. Like, a bunch of people like my memes, and they were messaging me and telling me, oh, we love what you're doing. And then sometimes you see that shit and you're like, man, there's so many people. Or you see the Trump ones where they're like, oh, he's God's fucking blessing to us. Or you see the liberals, oh, look at that 16-year-old girl. Oh, she's autistic. Don't make fun of her. Her ideas are stupid, and I wouldn't tell it to you. That's why we picked her, and we didn't have scientists to back it up, because an autistic girl is the best thing to bring out.
Yeah, it's a very sad situation, but one thing that, the more influence you have, the more responsibility you have to help. If your intention is
I don't believe that at all. If you have influence, you don't have to you don't have a responsibility to do shit. What gave you influence?
Okay, so
like you might have influence for, you could be a basketball player or a football player or something like that, where you happen to be born with some kind of natural skill to do something. Like,
all right, I'm specifically talking about the influence of those of us in the liberty community who have a following and can help guide it and things of that nature. Like, your position, like, say for example mine, okay, talking strictly about my account, I've got 2,700 followers. That's not a big following, but what can I do to help steer the liberty movement in a way to where people can be more hopeful, to provide solutions? I mean, most of my memes are pretty
no, they're spicy memes. I like them. Good shit.
Yeah,
I was actually I think one of the last of the eMilitia to start following you.
Well, that's a resounding review.
No. I resist things. I resist new things, and I'm always worried about these new accounts coming out. I'm like, man, this dude's got a spicy meme. I'll follow him. Never make another meme again.
Yeah, my So what I'm talking about is the influence that we have, right? With Instagram, limiting us and constant threat of being banned or having your accounts deleted. If we want to see change, and coming from my perspective, that I think people grouping together, geographically in order to affect local change and really achieve what we want, then people have to have, influencers in a way, people that they look to and say, okay, hey, this is how we're organizing. People that they trust, people that have shown themselves to be consistent, not just, I don't want to call anybody out as far as like age-wise, but, mature individuals, level-headed individuals, that are willing to discuss these things and are actually solution-oriented, that want real change in a beneficial way for everybody. So that's sort of what I'm trying to encourage as much as I possibly can is, hey, if you've got the ability to reach more people and to provide a solution to where they're not all just like, all right, I'm just going to go shoot someplace up, Boogaloo Clyde way and just hope it kicks off. I would really not want to be the page that gets put up and it's like, hey,
none of us want the Boogaloo Clyde way. Let's put that out. I'm not Mr. Fucking. Let's disclaim our red flags because fuck them. But yeah, I just don't want our followers. I'm not a Boogaloo Clyde. This is how this shit needs to go.
Mm-hmm.
I'm liking what you're fucking selling, man. Like,
I appreciate your input and your questions.
You never promised the utopia. You just said, can we live a little better than we are now? You never said, hey, I got the answer. You said, I don't have the answer, but I want to live better. Can you guys throw in on this? Like, this is my ideas.
Yeah, whoever has ideas, whenever this podcast goes up, it's like, put out a story. I'll put out a story. It's like, what do you think we can do? What are some ways that, even the people who follow us, I'm sure they've got good ideas. They may not have the following to where they can express them as much, but
no, and that's the thing is like I have a tendency to just follow people that can make good memes and have good content and stuff like that. But I have conversations with people that'll DM me all the time that their ideas are great. They might be a meme reposter or can't do nothing. They got a couple pictures of their wife or something on their account, but like their ideals are spot on.
All right, that's one of the reasons, like, I believe Empress's page, she hasn't had it for super long, but she really drives home her message of, she covers a lot of different things, but definitely her, the agorism, presenting that as a way. People like solutions. People like things that they can do to make a difference. And, the advent of agorism becoming more popular among a lot of pages. I see pages every day where now there's agorism or
it wasn't even a thing like a year or two ago, like barely. Right. Like if she was here, she would argue the fuck out of me, but she's not.
Oh, she's here. She's
No, I'm here.
I thought she dipped out. Oh, shit.
Oh. Okay, wait. Other questions from her about why what I want to do totally sucks.
Yeah, she's going to rip you a new one.
No. Someone's snoring and it's really distracting to me. I'm sorry.
The snoring?
I think Gramps is actually passed out.
That is so awesome. It's so, like, not professional at all, but I'm going to remember this forever.
Well,
they're gonna have me in the gulag, fucking waterboarding me, being like, "Who do you talk to online?" I'm like, "Fuck you," and I'm like, more water in my face, and I'm just thinking about the snoring.
Just stay strong.
Well,
I'm so sorry.
Unless anyone else has any like sort of final big topics, I think I've got a quick summary we can get into. Anyone else?
Definitely summary this motherfucker up.
All right. So I think what's important for people to take away, if anything, from this is that we need to be looking at peaceful solutions first, even if they're stepping stones. Like this one, I think even Don't Tax Me, you'd argue this is a stepping stone rather than the. No, I'm not going to say the final solution. The fucking hell.
Please don't. Please don't.
No, but like we're not looking at utopia here. We're looking at an innovation to get to our philosophy.
Right. Currently, we have a system that is being applied to 350 million people within the United States of America. Maybe we can do something different for like 10,000 people and possibly be an example of, hey, we don't need police throwing people in cages for their entire life over stupid, archaic laws that they've not harmed anybody else. You know, and just having that example to where, hey, look how they're operating without this stupid fucking police force terrorizing them every day. Maybe we can be an example to other cities to where other people start to not get totally fucked with.
Yeah, and I mean, just the cultural shift has to start somewhere, and having, like I said, a physical example that you can see, that you can visit, would make all the difference in the world. It's like, well, where has it worked? And you're just like, oh, well, you know, this city over here, just look at what they're doing. Like, the people are happier, they're saving because everything's, I don't want to say centralized, but everything's, so it's self-sufficient. So everything is designed to be as efficient as possible. They're more ecologically sound. It's the future.
If you could get something going like that, then people would want it.
Mm-hmm.
Well, how do you achieve this? Well, we got rid of some government and people started becoming more prosperous.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. More industrious.
Use mainstream ideas like being more eco-minded.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's just a way to start a boogaloo crew and do your best to avoid government until the shit goes down.
Yeah, I mean, for the hardcore collapsitarians, like, you know, pack your fucking plate carrier, get your rifle all set up, but keep it, you know, keep it within arm's reach. But that's not our number one. That's doomsday shit.
No, that's just protect yourself. It's never changed. Always protect yourself.
You know how many people would move to be there if they can have all of the NFA items?
I'd be packing my stuff right now.
It's like, you mean I can have an integrally suppressed, short-barreled, fully automatic, belt-fed gun without paying a shitload in taxes?
Like, depending on what community you move into and what county and what the laws are, you could have a community with your own police department and laws in a couple years.
Don't say police department, you're gonna make Empress mad.
I'm already triggered.
Well, we don't. Well, the whole point of the police department is that you deputize everyone in the city, and their only duty is they're all voluntary. No one gets paid, and the only duty is to keep the government out.
Yes, that is something else that I've considered. You know, if you have a business, either you go the private military route, or everybody's deputized part of the sheriff's department, and that
would be the compromise that you have to make because there's a government around you.
Yeah, now we'll
just
be
to make it happen.
HK guns with the law enforcement only. I'm going to get myself an M240. You know, whoever.
And if the community wants to donate, the community can donate for a force. We're not going to call it militia. We're going to call it a police force that protects the community.
Sheriff's Department.
Sheriff's Department because of the legalities of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing. It's finding ways that we can subvert the system while still maintaining this figurehead, and we can just sit there and laugh to ourselves. It's like, we're doing whatever the fuck we want to do. We're just using the terms so that way they don't get their panties in a bunch and go and fuck with us.
Yeah, I'm down to try that.
Yeah.
But I mean, our more autistic and like hardcore collapsitarians are gonna be already screaming or have left by this point. But
no, they can. Or they can come with some arguments too, because I'm not against the collapse.
Oh yeah, like
the collapse is
I
going
would
to
like
happen.
to be ready for the collapse.
The collapse
That's
is
what
going
I'm
to
talking
happen.
about.
I don't think anyone can make the collapse happen. The collapse is coming. They're doing it.
Mhm.
Government
Yes.
has got that taken care of. It's going to come, and it's going to call us all. Yeah, prepare as much as you can until then.
Right. I would rather be in a local community to where once the dollar collapses, I still don't have to worry about where my food's coming from. I still
No,
have
that
my,
would be. That's
you know,
like, yeah, no, that's the
people
dream.
of similar
isn't it?
mindset. So whenever you've got the roving hordes of starving people who have been sucking on the tit of the society that this
And you
federal
guys are
government's
laughing because you got fields that you're throwing food away to fucking deer and shit because you're like, we don't even hunt deer. We got it taken care of. Our shit's over. Fucking, we're making too much food. We're gonna fucking make a bunch of ethanol and
Yeah.
we'll all get drunk.
being
Isn't that
the
making continuing to rely on federal funding a liability?
what are you
What's
talking
that?
about relying?
No,
You're
well,
still
he's
getting
talking.
money to build infrastructure and all that stuff.
We intend to have the money.
Discussed it earlier.
Well, no, I brought it up as a thing. Like, should you steal from the government to make it better? But I don't know if that was
I think if you want this to be a really sound argument, you need to deny federal funds, and you need to
Things they
be.
do.
I agree with that. 100%. Yeah. If you wanted
Otherwise,
to
they're
be.
gonna be like, "Well, how did you start this off? Oh, we had federal funding." I think you need to be like, "No, this was crowdfunded, and we were like, fuck you, we're gonna do our own thing," and it was all.
I
by
see
people
the
for
value
people.
in that. Yeah. I'm not morally opposed to it, but I understand like giving the perception that, you know, we owe our beginning to the federal government. That would could rub a lot of people the wrong way and affect the message.
Yeah, I mean,
Not just that, it would be a liability when the federal government collapsed. Because all of a sudden
Well,
you'd have
it's
to
not
start
like
get
we're
that funding
constantly.
somewhere else.
No, that would be more of like a injection in the arm to grow the
Well,
community.
the only
thing.
way I would take federal funding is if you could funnel it into defense against the federal government, building walls or landmines or what have you.
When I went to college on the government's dime, I used what was left of my federal refund to buy firearms.
based.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, the only way you would take federal funding in that situation would be to somehow get military vehicles and walls and defenses and.
Right, but you know, you have the two, you know, it's a double-edged sword. Are you going to use it to help yourselves, or is it going to negatively affect the perception of your organization from the foundation?
Who would be the
Well-
recipient of that money, and how do you maintain a check
We
on
don't
them?
need it. I do not envision needing that sort of thing. It would just be sort of like a, yeah, fuck you. But
Yeah,
if
no,
in the
there would
long
be a
run-
total fuck you.
Right, but if in the long run, like Bloody was saying, if people see it's like, yeah, we started with federal money, then people would be like, oh, so you need the government for this thing to happen.
Yeah, no, you couldn't do that.
Right.
Why
So
would the government suddenly go hands off when they've never taken that approach before? I mean, they're
Yeah.
going to notice something is amiss.
We're gonna
the
try something.
You're not
Only-
reporting the same numbers, and not everybody's going to agree, and they might go tell.
Well, that's if we're using the Green City kind of initiative, we're trying to use that as sort of like a selling point. We don't, like I said, we don't really want to do the whole like openly, hey, fuck you, we hate you kind of thing. We're just saying, hey, we're trying a better way. Not saying you guys are wrong, but, you know, whenever everything collapses, we can just pat ourselves on the back. But
Maybe that's the
The,
equivalent of saying that I lost my guns in a boating accident. You're not really, are you really free if you have to appease them?
we're freer at the local level for sure. To what extent, if we're just going to sit there and wring our hands about what the federal government can fuck us with, we're never going to do anything. So I would rather fuck around and find out rather than just not do anything.
Those aren't the only two options.
And you are welcome to provide other ones that I have not considered. What's another option? Just
Bitcoin, the Ghost Gunner, Silk Road.
Okay. If everybody has Bitcoin, what are we?
And just creating those things are like.
I don't know if Bitcoin's the total answer either, though, because
they're attacks on.
Our government has a good chance of shutting down Bitcoin to this country pretty quickly. Like in a couple of years, the country could just get rid of the American dollar, like India did.
It's decentralized. There's no way they can shut it down.
You'd still use the American dollar, but you wouldn't have paper money. You would have a card that everyone had to use, and they could switch up the banks so that you had a government bank account pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Like in a year and a half, like everyone would have to have a government bank account.
Even right now,
you could have as a $5 bill.
Yeah, even right now, banks are closing people's accounts if they're involved in cryptocurrency industries.
You don't need a bank to be involved in cryptocurrency. You can mine it and get it other methods.
Right. If you want to be strictly on cryptocurrency, but making that change to that society, if you have a community that is actively doing that and is making all of the accommodations for that, that's even better. Bitcoin doesn't necessarily create a society, doesn't solve all of the problems, doesn't put food in people's mouths. You'd have to have people committing to developing those systems.
It's a threat to one of their.
We started going commie. We started going commie. No, I agree with the fact that Bitcoin doesn't make the new economy or whatever, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Bitcoin's what we're going to have forever. What I'm telling you is technology is advancing, and people will find a way. The government's going to intervene as much as they can. Like, look at North Korea. Those motherfuckers don't even know there's an internet. So, at some point, if Bitcoin is and not paying taxes is your main way to abstain from government will find a way to block that. So
they can even make it to where your phone company is if they can have it searching your phone for any programs related to crypto.
You don't need a
exactly. And that's what I like about the community is that your community doesn't say, well, we have the ultimate solution. You say, well, we're going to live on the American dollar until the American dollar doesn't last anymore. And then we're going to have some really hard times, but no one's going to starve because we have everything here. Shit's going to get fucked up.
There's businesses now that are operating off of a crypto coin within their ecosystem. There's businesses that are doing that now and exploring doing that even more. And so lots of businesses are forming their own forms of currency. And that's a good thing. I support Bitcoin. I support people using that and subverting the government and not being taxed out the ass and making huge ass transfers of Bitcoin to buy cars or houses or whatever the fuck you want. As long as you're not being subjected to the government. But there is a target on Bitcoin, and I sincerely hope that they will not fuck with it. And just as I sincerely hope that if you were to do this sort of community, that you don't get a target on your back and they just... But that's the thing. Whenever you've got something, a county-wide thing, where you've got, 5,000-10,000 people who are all working together, they're not sitting there all inside some, Branch Davidian place where they can get fire bombed or anything like that. We are a operating community with businesses that are providing services, that are actively living our lives happily and not threatening anybody. Just if they come in to try to do something, our government that currently still exists is going to intervene. And if they try something, then, we'll see how that goes. But, there's always the chance, that the federal government will say, hey, let's send some CIA agents in there to cause unrest and, give us a reason to go in there guns blazing. We can imagine that will happen. But I would hope that it doesn't. And that's just, what can you do? You can anticipate that it's going to happen. You can hope that it doesn't happen. But if you're just petrified by fear that something, they're going to fuck with us, then we won't do anything. That's
well, that's a pretty good way to wrap it up.
But as far as what she said about the issue of, is this just like, losing your guns in a boating accident? I don't think so, because I think we're equipping people to live a better life. We're exemplifying the anarchist or the voluntarist mindset, and we're trying to give people an example to follow and to show people, we can live a better way with complete reciprocity within our organization, within our community, and not use coercion. And any win that we can have, any win, even getting rid of the tyrannical local government to an extent, getting rid of the police who are policing and throwing people in cages, any wins that we can achieve and show people that there's a better way where we're not throwing people in cages, have rehabilitation thing for drug users rather than treating them as criminals, anything that the local government is set aside and is not doing, and that we're producing solutions with private organizations or even just charities, that's a win for our position, because we're giving examples. We're showing we can do it. We can build it.
Hey, we got to save a little bit for the next time you're on.
Yes.
Yes.
I gotta shut up.
You're doing awesome. I love it. You're rattling them off.
Yeah, and
but
so,
Bloody brought it up a minute ago, and he's on top of his shit.
Yeah, I'm sober tonight. It's crazy.
Well, I appreciate you guys having me on, and I hope that, in some way this can help other people start thinking of creative ways that we can do what we say that we can do and achieve what we all agree is the ideal. How can we start living that?
And to pursue peaceful means until there's no other option.
Right.
Which a lot of people need to start learning more about. Read your fucking Conkin.
Cosine.
Do what?
I said cosine.
Empress agrees with that statement.
Okay.
Yes, I agree with that.
I didn't fuck up. Yeah. Look more into your peaceful voluntarist means, but keep your rifle loaded.
Yes.
Good Conkin read.
Thank you for having me on.
Podcast up with would be anarcho-Zionism.
What?
Anarcho-Zionism? Oh Christ! Now at the
end, we talked about that. I don't like how it rolls off the tongue. Like we need something more boogaloo like for
Well,
we call it Charlie.
Meme to
we just call it Charlie.
Charlieism.
Wait, what is it? Arcology agorism? Some combination of those two?
Ooh, now it's getting sexy.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Arcorism.
Oh. we'll work on it behind the scenes. Yeah. Anyone else have any final comments?
I think I kind of wrapped it up.
Yeah.
Any plugs?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
Yes, any plugs, don't text me.
My Instagram page is Don't Tax Me Bro, and that is all I have.
Perfect.
Solid.
Perfect. I'm gonna mention the guys that aren't here. Rebellious has a nice little product line.
Rebellious.
Just hit up his Instagram. Bloody is pretty BR he's known by me. Has a nice little Instagram line. Teespring Some nice T-shirts. Some new. Just came out with some new designs.
That's my bourbon and my bullet money. I appreciate it. It's doing pretty well, and I love the fuck out of any of you looking at that stuff and ordering it. You're funding better equipment for this and funding it's actually started to save me some time with my freelance, so I can actually get on writing the fucking guide. So I've actually managed to drop some of those shittier clients. So thank you for that.
I think, just a self-serving thing right now, if you're for guests, if you put together like a gift basket with that cool like face mask and wonderful things, maybe some, premier whiskey just to there's ways around that.
All right. I don't want to have a fucking list of you people. I do not enjoy waterboarding. I'm not sure how long I'll last.
I just like free shit.
That's fair. I can respect that. We all like free shit. Free shit is the best shit. All right, we've got a fuck ton of good guests. It's getting really busy. We've been talking to some very interesting people, and I'm glad that we've kickstarted this sort of rise of the quality of guests. It's getting really good. Not that I don't love our previous guests, but it's like I was like, we're gonna have like 3 really solid guests, and it's just gonna like wean off. We're gonna start being like, hey, like new follower who has like 20 followers. Do you want to talk about shooting cops for an hour? Like, but no, like seriously, everyone we have on is fucking great, and I'm loving where this podcast is going. So yay! Thank you for watching, and all the suggestions from the community, because that's helpful too. So yeah, until next time, much love.
Love y'all. Night.
Love you too.